Hello everyone, welcome to our discussion about Module 5 Gastrointestinal Physiology. So to begin with, we have functions of the GIT, including ingestion or eating, secretion. So what does your GIT secrete? You have your various enzymes and juices. Then you have mixing and propulsion, which are important. Mixing the food that you have broken down mechanically to the enzymes in order to digest them and make them into simpler substances. Then you have propulsion, or moving the food or the bolus forward. Then you have digestion. We have two types. You have your mechanical with the help of movement and muscles. Then you have your chemical with the help of enzymes and the juices. Then you have absorption. So this is movement from the inside of the GIT towards nearby blood vessels or lymphatic vessels. Then you have defecation. Of course, this is the process of excretion of wastes. Then for the organs of the digestive system, you have two categories, your alimentary canal and your accessory organs. So the alimentary canal is also known as your gastrointestinal tract, and it is this long tube that connects your mouth towards your anus. So this also includes your pharynx, esophagus, stomach, intestines, and your rectum as well. For your accessory organs, these are organs that don't necessarily need to have contact with food, but nonetheless, they help with digestion by secreting enzymes or juices. So we have your teeth, salivary glands, tongue, liver, pancreas, and your gallbladder. Next, you have various layers of the GIT or alimentary canal which have four basic structures or four basic layers: your mucosa, submucosa, muscularis, and serosa. So these are found all throughout your alimentary tract or your GIT, but they have some variations in other parts. So you have your mucosa, which is the innermost layer. This is direct contact with the food. It contains your lamina propria, which contains blood vessels and lymphatic vessels, which are important for absorption. Then you have your MALT, or your mucosa-associated lymphatic tissue, which are these sort of like lymph nodes of your GIT because they contain immune cells. So whenever there are ongoing infections, so these can send off immune cells nearby lang sa GIT. Okay, those are your MALT, or mucosa-associated lymphatic tissue. Next, you have your submucosa. So this is the next layer, and this contains your submucosal plexus or your plexus of Meissner, which is a bundle of nerves responsible for the secretions done by your submucosal layer. Next, you have your muscularis layer. So this layer, like I've said, no, all four layers present sa entire GIT, pero there might be some variations. And an example of this one is with the muscularis layer. So most likely all throughout the GIT, these are smooth muscles. But when it comes to your external anal sphincter, this is a skeletal muscle. So again, all throughout, yeah, smooth siya, involuntary, but sa external anal sphincter, skeletal siya or voluntary muscle na siya. Right? Your muscularis layer also contains your myenteric plexus, which is a bundle of nerves responsible for control of the actions of the muscularis layer. Then you have your serosa, or your adventitia layer in some cases, and then it contains epithelium and connective tissue. Next, you have neural control of the GIT, basically by three parts. You have your enteric autonomic nervous system and your GIT reflex pathway. So for your enteric nervous system, this is also known as the brain of the gut. So this is like the nervous system of the GIT. So in other words, si GIT pwede siya ka-take up stimulus and ka-respond to stimulus right away by way of this nervous system. So you have your myenteric and your submucosal plexus. The myenteric plexus, also known as the plexus of Auerbach, is located within the muscular layer, and then it functions for motility and movement. And your submucosal plexus, or plexus of Meissner, is located in the submucosa, which functions for secretions. So your enteric nervous system can stand on its own feet, can react to its own stimuli using its own organs. However, it is still under the influence of your autonomic nervous system. So under the autonomic, you have your parasympathetic, or siya kay CN10, vagus nerve, and to the sacral segments of the spinal cord. So the action would be to increase secretion and motility. So for the sympathetic innervation, this is found kay thoracic and upper lumbar segments. Its reaction would be to decrease GI secretion and motility. So as you can see here, si enteric nervous system, or si myenteric and submucosal plexus, they can react on their own by talking to each other or by communicating with each other, but at the same time, the same stimulus that they send to the enteric nervous system is also sent upwards to your ANS and your CNS to help them create a more stronger or a more powerful response. Then you have your GI reflex pathways. What I want you to know, there are two reflex pathways, your short and your long reflex. So for the short reflex naman niya, this is when stimulus is inside the GIT, integration is within the GIT, and the response is also within the GIT. So very short lang siya. They can react automatically. However, there are some reflexes that take a longer time because they need to go up to your central nervous system before they go down and give their response. So, ano ang difference ni short and long response? For the movements in the GIT, you have peristalsis and segmentation. What is the difference? See, peristalsis is mainly just pushing or just moving the bolus throughout your GIT. So movement, si peristalsis. While segmentation not only moves the bolus but also mixes and breaks it down into smaller portions. Okay? Next, we have blood supply of the GIT. So the blood supply of the GIT is by way of your splanchnic circulation. So take a look at this one here. So what is your splanchnic circulation? This is just the circulation through the gut itself plus flow through the spleen, pancreas, and liver. So this is your aorta giving off oxygenated blood by way of your celiac artery, superior and inferior mesenteric artery to your stomach, spleen, pancreas, small intestines, and colon. So you also have your hepatic artery giving off oxygenated blood to your liver. So what happens after nila give sa ila oxygen? The blood becomes deoxygenated. So from the stomach, spleen, pancreas, and your intestine and colon, they go and give off deoxygenated blood to your portal vein. Diin pa kadto. It goes to your liver. Now, as you can see, your liver receives blood from deoxygenated blood and oxygenated blood. And from there, it will eventually have deoxygenated blood here, hepatic vein, and going back to your inferior vena cava and eventually back to your heart. So there are three important points I want you to remember about the blood supply of the GIT. It's that GI blood flow is usually directly proportional to the level of local activity. This is to say that, for example, kung may ginaubra si small intestine, then the blood flow to that area needs to be increased. So the more activity there is, the more blood flow there should be. So this is to increase the rate of absorption and their capacity to absorb. Next, the nervous control of the GI blood flow is by means of the ANS. So when the parasympathetic system is activated or the parasympathetic innervation is activated, diba, rest and digest, this will vasodilate the vessels found kay gut or kay GIT. Then, with the sympathetic response, the initial reaction kay sympathetic is actually to vasoconstrict, right? But at the same time, because of that vasoconstriction, causing hypoxia or decreased oxygenation, eventually, ma-vasodilate na siya again due to autoregulation, diba? Because we do not want hypoxia to happen. So basically, it all boils down to vasodilation. Next, sympathetic vasoconstriction is useful when other parts of the body need extra blood flow. So this just means nga very useful ang vasoconstriction pakadto sa GIT if other parts of the body need extra blood, right? So gina-reroute niya ang blood instead nga ma-end up siya sa GIT. Of course, since it's vasoconstricted, it will go to other parts of the body instead. Okay, so for the next part, we will discuss the parts and functions of the GIT.